So we got the trailer at the PlayStation State of Play. Everybody's seen this. Everybody's excited, and for good reason. But we've had a lot of information to dissect, both in the visual of just watching the trailer, as well as the article on the website of Monster Hunter Wilds, which does give some context and some further information to what we saw. But I just want to go over a couple of little things that I noticed, as many things as possible, really, and just elaborate on what I see and what my thoughts are. So, without further ado, let's start right at the beginning of the trailer. So, as we can see here, it's pretty much confirmed now that we have another base or village where it is the base camp per se for the Scarlet Forest. So at least we know now that we'd seen the one in the Windward Plains, and obviously we've got the exact same thing here for the Scarlet Forest, which is I think is a great addition. So it looks like we will definitely be having multiple villages. I'm pretty sure a lot of people probably already knew this, but at least this is somewhat confirmation, and that way we know there's plenty of characters and things to interact, so you can tell that there's going to be a lot of density in terms of meeting new characters and finding out what each of their personalities are and how they tie to the story and how they can help you, or however the story is going to play out. So yeah, so I think that's pretty neat. And then on to the next scene. As you can see, the hunters, they traveling across these like branches that are very high up in the air, just showing how vertical this map is. And there is going to be another scene later on in this trailer, which I'll quickly touch on, which just shows how vertical this is when you see the secret climbing up, and you can see it goes on for quite a while. So you can I just really want to see the 3D map of this, because we saw the Windward Plains, and this looks like it's going to have some crazy, like high-end, very tall mountain areas or trees that you're going to be able to traverse in, which I'll touch on in a moment as to why that may be the case. But yeah, so this bit, I mean, other than it looks great, and it does look a bit like Ancient Foresty towards the Rathian and Rathalos Nest. If anybody remembers that, there was a camp up there. We had like a similar thing up there. So yeah, I believe they got the inspiration from that for this particular section of the map, and I think it looks pretty cool. So can't wait to see a little bit more of this. Then we get to the hunters walking through the forest area. As you can see, it's some very torrential rain. It doesn't look very bright. And then obviously this is where we get to Uth Duna, the new Leviathan monster, which is already looking like it's going to be one of my absolute favorites. The design of this monster, I think I'm gonna make a separate video talking about the designs of the monsters. I think, because I think that's something that really interests me, and I want to know if everybody agrees with me, or if they see anything different, or they have different opinions or different facts, perhaps. But this is where I want to just highlight a little bit. Obviously, as you can see, we can see the little small monsters in the forest. You can see that the water's quite high, and as it says on there, it's causing the water currents to surge too. So obviously this is going to be some sort of dynamic weather. It's going to be some sort of torrential rain, which is going to cause water currents, which is pretty interesting. I'm assuming this is what is going to work in the way of dragging the Uth Duna, which is the apex of the Scarlet Forest. That's been confirmed by Capcom themselves. So this is very interesting to me, because it's the possibilities of what could happen because of the water currents is still unknown, but there could be obviously a few different things here. Obviously, with a high tide, you would probably want something like what underwater combat to fully take advantage of it, which by the looks of it, it's not going to be happening in this game, at least not for now. So I am very, very curious to see as to what happens. Like, will this mean that it's going to be harder for us to traverse in it? Is it going to mean that the Sacred perhaps is going to struggle to take us around the map? Could this be the gameplay implications? I'm not entirely sure, but we'll find out, I guess. So yeah, this is something I really want to focus on, and I really want to get some answers on. Maybe when I play the game, or if they want to elaborate on what's going to happen, then pretty cool. Obviously, we had the sandstorm and the lightning storm. Obviously, that's obviously got its own effects to the hunter and the monster. Obviously, the environment changes entirely. It's very dark, and then also the lightning strikes can hit both you and the monster, so it has an effect which can cause uh, a pretty big impact on the fight itself, just for the fact that it's active. So, yeah, I want to know how this is going to play out. I'm not entirely sure yet, but I'm looking forward to it. It's a pretty good and interesting idea, and I really, really want to see where this goes. Then we've got the other state of the environment, which looks pretty vibrant, looks very good. And it shows us Doshiguma here. And I want to just have a look at this because the plants look very, very detailed. Like the amount of flora that they've added to this game is actually crazy. And the one that really interests me the most, as you can see here, is those little Venus flytrap looking things. Like, I wonder if they will actually work and actually hurt you or the monster if we get too close to it. I think that would be very, very cool. Probably a bit annoying if you're low on health and you get caught by a plant, but I mean, it will be funny. At the end of it, we'll probably start laughing. So, yeah, so this is just a small touch. Then we get to the little bird looking thing, but it's the fishing scene here, and this here is what I want to highlight. Not the fishing, because obviously it's just a typical monster hunter thing, it's nothing new. I mean, like I said in the last video, we saw Ryoza doing this in the middle of a hunt, which everybody thought was great. But it's the background that really interests me, and you also see this a little bit further on in just a moment when the hunter is using the wedge beetles to traverse around the map. So it looks like, firstly, that it's got some big bones sticking out, like some big fangs, and that could indicate some sort of massive monster that once lived in this area and has now deceased, or is extinct, perhaps, maybe, or there may be another, it may still be roaming around somewhere, we don't know. So that's pretty interesting. But then the rest is all very ruin looking, and this could be a new locale that we haven't, obviously, have not been revealed to us yet. But I think it would make sense. And obviously, we're going to look at the story and obviously the other monster, that's flagship monster, which is obviously a pretty big deal, and how it may impact the story. But I do believe, if I had to guess, that the ruins are where the boy is probably originated from, and it's in ruins because of this monster. The White Wraith has obviously terrorized them, done something really bad, because as you can see from the reactions later on in the trailer that the little boy Nata has, it's obviously there's some trauma there. That's all I'm gonna say. Then obviously, you obviously caught the fish, happy days, and then we get to the traversal, which I was referring to. Look how high up that is. That is amazing. And here is where I was referring to when they are on the wedge beetles. As you can see, there's so much in the back there. Look at all the ruins in the back. It looks like they're heading that way, so that is something that I really want to see. So fingers crossed this is the case. We get to see more of this. If it is in the Scarlet Forest, it's just another part of it, then obviously all of this means nothing. But if it is another locale, this is how we lead to another locale. We know everything's interconnected. We get to the Scarlet Forest by following the river in the Windwood Plains. So this could just be another route to the next locale from here. So we'll see. But other than that, I mean, just look at the colour, look at everything. It just looks amazing. Like, I can't wait to explore this area. This already looks like going to be one of my favourite maps. Like, it's got coral, like the Coral Highlands was beautiful, but this, the colour, direction, everything, it just looks incredible. Not when it's in the inclemency period, of course. That looks a little bit dull. I wonder what that's going to look like. We'll see. Perhaps we have seen that, so yeah. Then we cut to Lalabarina getting absolutely bombarded by 4 hunters, which is really sad. But this bit really interests me because the environmental trap that he just used on the Doshiguma there, that is huge. The scale of that is huge, and I hope that means very meaty damage. But the thing that interests me, I don't know if this is just for a visual thing, obviously to make it look as realistic and cool as possible. But if you look, when the cave drops on the Doshiguma, it creates this wave. Now, I wonder if that's going to affect us as well, which is why the hunter's seemingly running away from it. If it's actually going to have an impact, it's going to have some sort of... it's either going to give us water blight, it's going to, damage the hunter. If so, obviously that is very, very attention to detail, and I really, really, really hope that's the case. But, I mean, at the end of the day, it's not that big of a deal, but it would just be nice. So, yeah, just thought I'd point that out. Then we get to this bit where we meet the tribe, which is the Woodwoods, and I really hope that they have a significant impact on the gameplay, at least maybe not the story. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but if it involves perhaps showing our Palico or training our Palico, trading items, teaching Palico their super moves, perhaps, because we see in a moment they use a super move, which was the Vigor Wasp, where they revive you once you caught, so it gives you like a second chance, which was obviously brought into Iceborne for the first time. So I think that's something to keep an eye on. But yeah, they're called the Woodwoods. They look pretty cool. They are also voiced. I don't know if you're going to be able to turn those off as well if you really want to, but I mean, I'm not going to do that. I'll listen to the little squeaky Palico and all these guys if that's the case. But yeah, I'm not sure if there's going to be a feature to turn this off or not for them. I know the Palico there is, obviously, we already know that, but yeah. But yeah, there's not really much else to say about these. Obviously, we get to the hideout, just like we did with the Boa Boa. We had the Boa Boa hideout in the Hoarfrost Reach. We had the Grimalkins in the Ancient Forest, and so this is just going to be following the same trend, which I think is pretty good because I like that. Just adds a little bit more lore, having a little tribe that lives in that area. You know, they ask us to respect that it's their area. Like, you can't just storm in there and do what you want, and I think that's pretty neat, and I really like that. So yeah, I'm glad they included that. Then we get to the Palicos running off with some meat for some reason, and we get an introduction to the new Brute Wyvern, looking like a brute chicken called the Chemetries. Now, this is like a cross between Glavenus. I don't even know where to go with this. To be honest, it's one I need to really look at and try to find a reasonable explanation and description of. But yeah, I really like it. I don't know what it is. It's one of those more silly monsters, like the Chatacabra type thing. It's not. Obviously, you look at the Balahara, you look at the Raydao, you look at Lalabarina, you look at Oof Duna, and they're all quite serious monsters and like threatening. Whereas this looks like it's just a chicken who causes fire with its tail swipes, and I like the idea. Very. I mean, I hope we get Glavenus, so Glavenus can kind of teach it a lesson as who the real Flame Blade is in these areas. So, but yeah, it looks like an interesting monster, to be honest. And as always, as I said in the last video, the Palico decided that it was gonna act like it's too big, way too big for its boots, and attack it, which then led to the hunter having to fight it, and then inevitably carting to it. So yeah, thank you, Handler 2.0. Appreciate that. Then we cut to some very heavy torrential rain as the hunters rush to the area, and we get an introduction to the flagship, the White Wraith, which is called Arkveld. That's a very cool name. It gives me some sort of like Nordic vibes. I don't know if that's going to be anything in relation to the monster itself, if it's going to have an inspiration from that. But as we can see straight away, it has got Uthduna already in its chains, so it's attacked to Uthduna. And obviously we know that Uthduna is an apex monster, so the fact that it's doing that, it's just showing this monster is going to be no joke. The fact that it can do this with ease, and then as you can see a little bit later on, is doing exactly the same thing, attacking a Raydao in his own nest, where it's its most dangerous, where it's got the lightning floor, where it can really amplify its attacks, and it just strolls in there and is like, this is mine. Like, it is what it is. They're essentially showing the flagship in a way. They're promoting it as if like in the WWE, for example, when they want to really show that one of the wrestlers is being built up to be this very very powerful and the next best thing, and is very dangerous and is a real threat to everybody. They're putting him in there with two apexes to then I just show the prowess and the strength and just the mentality that the monster has to just rock up in their habitats where they're at their most dangerous and just say, this is mine, I don't care what you do, you're going down, essentially. So yeah, bit of a WWE analogy in here. Never thought I'd make this, but yeah, it's just the first thing that popped in my mind, and I just think Arkveld is looking very, very, very nice. I mean, it's got some obviously Flying Wyvern features. We don't know what the classification is of this monster yet. We don't know if it's an Elder Dragon, don't know if it's a Flying Wyvern. I'm not entirely sure, but it's got the tusks like the Chatacabra. So Chatacabra confirmed, I guess. Maybe not, but hopefully. Anyway, yeah, I need to look at more into Arkveld because there's going to be so much to him. The story this time is just it's so important. They've put so much focus on the story this time round that I think that this is going to be one of those monsters whose lore is probably going to be one of the most interesting, if not the most interesting, that we've had so far. And I mean, that's not an easy feat because, you know, if you know anything about the Monster Hunter lore, for me, it's probably the best lore of any game out there. So yeah, I'll look forward to seeing more of this. There's also been some artwork where he literally looks like he's been chained to a wall, and its body essentially grew parts over the chains, so the chains have now stuck with him. I don't think it's something that he would have grown himself, because I mean, it doesn't really make much sense in an ecological way. And I know obviously Monster Hunter tries to stick to at least a little bit of realism, and obviously draw inspiration from real life creatures. So I don't think a chain wielding flying wyvern sounds very realistic. So yeah, I think there's going to be something along those lines. It's going to be the reason as to why he has those. But yeah, I just want to see more of him. Then we'll finish off the little fight sequence between Arkveld and Ray Dow, get a little bit more of an insight onto the story and matter. We see a clash attack for the Lance and an offset attack for the Hunting Horn, which is looking pretty cool. But yeah, that's pretty much it here. I'll need to touch more on Arkveld and his design because there's a couple of things that really interest me, but I think I'll have to touch that on another video. And right at the end here, we get the release date, of course, the 28th of February, which is not very long really, and I am so happy that it's not later than this. But if we look at the versions that are just about to pop up in a moment, obviously we've got the Guild Knight set, which is cool, and the charm, but if we look here, it's the confirmation that there is going to be some sacred customization. Obviously this is all cosmetic for the time being, but this pretty much confirms that there is going to be some element of customizing what your sacred looks like, which is something people wanted, and I do believe they had touched on that, but a lot of people are still not sure from what I've seen, so that's confirmation of that. But yeah, we've got the Tokyo Game Show very soon today, so hopefully we get maybe another trailer, perhaps new monsters again, or we're just going to get more elaboration on what was shown. But I feel like this might be a case just like it was back in the Summer Games Fest, where we had the PlayStation event and we had a trailer there, and we had a trailer straight away afterwards, just a few days later. I think this is probably going to be a repeat of that. So stay tuned for that, and we'll cover whatever there is once we get there. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. This just been a little bit of a breakdown, nothing too crazy, but hopefully I've touched on a few things that got you thinking and got your theory crafting brains working. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.